Wow, there it is. I think we're recording. So, yeah, hey, welcome everybody to the Sustainiacs. I am Michael Vincent. I am a Sustainiac all the time. And the other Sustainiac today is Lars Ward, who's, I think you're, what are you, Chief Officer of Business Development or
Oh gosh, I
Extreme
would take that
Grand
title,
Poobah?
but
Are you Grand Poobah or something like that of business
again,
development?
another one I would take. I like that. No, I'm the
I think
VP
he's
of Business
changed.
Development, but hey, what's in a title? Truth is, I've gotten a really cool opportunity here at FV, and that's to lead
I
our
didn't even say what FV is. It's Freight Vana, my
Great
friends.
Vana. Yeah.
Right
So
on.
hey, I get to
Are you
lead
guys going
the.
like the FedEx route? You're getting rid of the Federal Express and just going FV? Is that what we're doing?
That's what the cool kids call us, right?
Yeah. Is there cool kids? Where are those guys? I've
Hey,
never met
on this pod right now, that's where we are.
them.
So
Yeah, yeah, we're the two cool kids, so it is FV. Officially, it is. Officially, it is.
I love it.
What are you guys doing there, man? I had Shanna Breen on a long, that seems like probably a couple 100,000 trees ago, I think. What?
I think that's right, and you're giving away a little bit of the fun here, right? So
A little
this
bit.
this is the magic of it. I think we connected, gosh, early on in the Freight Vana history. I think because of what we're
Yeah.
doing in sustainability, we're doing a lot of great stuff here. But
Yeah.
one of the things I'm super proud of is I get to be our champion for all things sustainability. So I'll back it up a little bit. Who's Freight Vana? We are a freight tech forward brokerage based out of Phoenix. We got started. This is almost 2 years in June of 2021. When myself and about 22 other folks all left one of America's biggest trucking companies to start Freight Vana.
Was
Did
it
you
a
not know
local?
that?
Was it a local big company?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Local in
can.
Phoenix. Yeah, I'll give you.
All
I'll
right.
give you two guesses. But no, hey, I'm super proud to have been a part of
So it
my
wasn't
former team.
Saya, it wasn't Old Dominion, it wasn't.
No. Yeah. We were joking before we started recording. We work in one of the biggest small industries out there,
We
you
do.
know, and
We
that's
do.
and that's one of the best things about it, right? We get
Yeah,
to know each
absolutely.
other, build relationships, and hopefully move the industry forward. So I think the dream
It's
here
almost
at Freight.
embarrassing to when somebody says, "Hey, do you know?" and you have to say no. It's like shit. I'm not
Yeah,
as connected
right.
as everyone
And then
else.
and you're sitting there. It's like, all right, well, then you got to make the introduction. That's the
Yeah. Oh,
rule,
yeah.
right?
I introduce people all the time. It's one of the things I love to do.
Oh, I know it. And so, well, hey, and it was fun because last time we were hanging out, we were live in person in Orlando at TIA talking about sustainability. We
We
had
were.
so much fun.
We had a lot of fun doing that. And what we didn't get to do though is get a really good update on. Let's talk about what you guys are doing there, right?
Yeah,
Because
get into the nuts and bolts of it
one of
because
the
we were
things
really
we're
talking
out
high
there,
level. We were talking the industry perspective, right? What do we
yeah,
do with sustainability? Customers are demanding it. The SEC is cracking down on it. And for a lot of folks who live in the brokerage space, they don't know what to do about it, right?
exactly.
Yeah. So what? We got started 2 years ago with the dream of building a more transparent brokerage offering. Okay, that makes sense. Who doesn't want
Yeah.
to be more transparent? But now we're sitting around saying, well, what do we do about sustainability? What do we do? I'm not running trucks. I used to. I'm not thinking about
But,
utilization. I used
you know,
to.
that, Lars, that's the big question. That's one of the things we were trying to get across to people, and I think we did a pretty good job because we had a lot of engagement and a lot of
A
people
lot
in the
of
room
intrigue there,
at the
right?
panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's as an intermediary, or even if you're an asset based, what the heck can you do
You
that
just
isn't
you just
sitting
touched on
around
something
waiting for somebody else to do it so you can implement it, right? I mean, if you're a trucking company, you're not developing a new engine, you're not developing new fuels,
there.
you're
You
not
know,
doing anything.
most of my experience has been sort of in this hybrid realm of asset and non-asset all put
Right,
together, right? And I think what's interesting is so the asset players, this is typically the logic and the decisioning. If we're a little bit more efficient, we're going to save some money. What does that look like? Trailer skirts, trailer tails, better MPG, newer equipment, less idle time. Can we talk about that, right? You're just wasting time idling, driving around. It's not great for the driver and it's not great for the planet either, right? And
right.
so that's kind of where the conversation, starts and stops. And then I think there's this perspective if you're a non-asset provider, you are a broker. Well, you're like, I don't have any skin in the game. So what does it matter?
Well, it's really easy to make that excuse, and 99% of the people you run into are going, "Yeah, I see what you're saying."
Yeah.
I'm at mercy of what everybody else is doing. I'll use the more sustainable carriers or when I can and stuff like that, and I try to do the most efficient routing using route optimization or whatever it happens to be. But I'm the intermediary. I can't really exactly tell the truck which way to go, and I can't verify all this stuff. So you go, yeah, I see your problem. Good luck with that, right?
If you're a broker and the capacity you access is segmented into transactional pieces, you don't know how the routes work, you don't know how the idle works, and you really don't have the data to
Yeah.
tell a story about how you're moving us forward to be greener. That's the truth. But now I think we can get close. But look, if you're not running that truck, you're not telling the story.
You're not telling that story. But there's things that you can do even than that, because you're implying some of those, right? Right.
Oh, of
Right.
course. Yeah. So hey, we're touching on some of it because at Freight Vana, what we've done a couple of things. One of the biggest things we've done is we've deployed an asset trailer fleet for power only service. And we didn't invent power only, but we've been leaders in power only. There's not a lot of brokers and no brokers at our stage of business who have been able to deploy as many assets as we have. So what happens when we go to the marketplace and give trailers? We're creating efficiencies for the shippers and for the carriers.
Yeah.
Because most of the carriers we work with, what do they do all day? Live freight. They don't do drop and hook. Are you kidding me?
No.
They don't have the excess. They don't have the excess trailing equipment. They don't have the access to some of these enterprise shippers. And for these shippers, they have no interest in onboarding fleets of less than 75, 50, 20 trucks. There's no way they can manage those vendor partners, right?
Right.
And so I think we are bridging something in the middle. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to go out and say I'm reducing this idle time and creating this benefit, because there could be an argument that those shippers would procure other drop capacity elsewhere. Sometimes we are able to convert, sometimes we're not able. So unless you're able to find those efficiencies and actually create net new sort of trailer asset equipment for shippers, that's a fuzzy story too, right? So don't get me wrong, there's a benefit there. I think there's, and look, you could take it down another level. There's huge benefits if you just optimize your schedules and your appointments. But that's a really, really messy thing to do.
You've got to have that pretty well optimized if you're going to use a power only service like
Right.
you got, right?
Yep.
Is what you're saying. I can't have a DC sitting there with just trailers against the door.
But we're dealing with so much complexity and so much mess, right? You've got all these providers, all these drivers, all coming in and out of the buildings.
Yeah.
You've got these appointments that are moving around constantly. And then we're left with what? We're left with a lot of inefficiency and slack in the chain that creates this waste. No doubt about it. So is there a massive opportunity there? There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
We have to challenge that, right? But let's bring it back down to brokers like myself and so many in the industry. What do you do? And so I'll tell you the story. We're around a conference table. Yeah. We're talking through these different options. And hey, I admire a lot of the folks in our industry. Look at Uber, look at Convoy. They talk a lot about creating efficiencies and reducing their impact because of it. Look at a Flock Freight. They've got an innovative program where they're offering some offsets. Okay, that's interesting. But we're sitting around there and we're thinking a couple of things. One, how do we make a real impact? And then two, let's talk about the marketing side of it. I want to be able to tell a story about how sustainability is important and how we can make more positive impact. And so we, landed on this idea, what if we planted a tree for every single load that we ship? Yeah. And I think we forget there's a powerful magic in what trees do from carbon sequestration, but also,
absolutely.
If you're an outdoors lover, maybe like hiking, maybe like camping, maybe like hunting, right? Well, now
hiking would be less. It would be less interesting if there were no trees in a lot of places. No now, kidding, where you live, where you're out there, you don't. Saguaro cactuses and stuff like that. But like where I'm at, if you remove all the trees here in Chattanooga, it's probably not going to look all that great.
It doesn't look all that pretty. And so, I'm fortunate in Arizona because, I live in a hot desert. But you drive up an hour and a half, 2 hours north. It's the largest ponderosa pine forest in the country. It's pretty incredible. You go up and there's skiing, there's wildlife, there's hunting. There's so much fun up there. And look, it's going to be hot here in Phoenix for the next couple of months. I'm gonna need a weekend escape. And think about it. The whole West Coast, we're seeing more forest fires. Part of it's forest management. There's other factors at play as well. Here's the thing: if we can go help and replant trees that progress a forest decades ahead of schedule and recovering. That's massive. Or how about this? Just through human activity, we've lost probably about a third of our global forest. Let's reclaim that.
Yeah. And, here's another interesting thing is, and this will be coming out in a couple of weeks. I had a conversation with Eric Law. Now, he's the co-founder and CEO of a company out in San Francisco way, across the bay from San Francisco, called Urban Machine. All right.
Okay.
And what they do is they reclaim wood.
Oh, interesting. Sure.
And it gets way more interesting than that, dude. They're using X-ray machines and visual IR and AI and robotics. You pump lumber through this thing and it removes screws, nails, staples, everything out of it. And you got fresh lumber coming out the other side
cool.
of it.
Yeah.
It's incredibly cool. The carbon footprint change is amazing. But what he's doing there is something along the lines of what you're doing. What he told me and why this relates to what you're doing is he's reducing the amount of trees that we have to cut down. Because what he's saying is our managed forest and our lumber, it's maxed, dude. It's there. That's it.
Yeah.
We're managing the maximum we can, right? So there's what you're doing, planting. He's negating the taking of it, and you're adding back to.
You need both inputs to happen, right?
You need both inputs to happen.
You need net new, and you need smarter ways to reuse some of the natural resources that we have. And hey, think about this. It's not just recycling, but I start to think about the reverse logistics. I start to think about the complexities of recycling. And one of the dirty secrets about why we don't actually recycle is because it's a really hard thing to do. And so you see technology.
We built all our infrastructures and supply chains based on extract, use, and waste.
We want virgin raw material in everything that we do.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's easy. But here's the thing. When technology comes in and we're smarter about what we're doing, two things are true. One, we can probably lower our cost. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, why not do that today? But we know that that's where the future's heading.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. You can go and command a different price premium in the marketplace when you have a better product.
Yes.
When consumers see that you're green, look, the research is clear. People will pay something for that.
Yeah.
I think there's companies that are going to go win because of it.
Well, I mean,
the holy grail is when you do both. If you're greener and cheaper, you're. I mean, that's a knockout.
Well, you're killing it. And here's the thing. Here's what's really interesting about that, Lars, is when you ask people, and I've never done it personally, but when I read, the surveys done by legitimate people like, Reuters and MIT and Forbes, and so on, people that like theoretically we respect because we think they know what they're doing. So we'll all agree they know what they're doing, right? I have no idea. They may be making the crap up. I don't know, but I think that they're legit. I think that they're legit. When they ask people, 74% say, I'm buying sustainable given everything that's equal, right?
Yep.
But if you put two products on a shelf, they'll buy the cheaper one. And the reason that is because the messaging on the marketing isn't there. You're not telling your story. You're
tapping into the human psychology, and this is
you have to tap into the human psychology.
How do we get to present something?
You can't just want to be green.
Tells a value story, and look, some of these things are getting more and more complex.
Yeah,
and buyers are getting more and more fatigued.
Yeah,
enterprise deals are dragging out. Consumers, I mean, how many options do you have in CPG when you walk down the aisle today? Come on.
Oh my gosh,
right?
Yeah.
And then there's a problem here too. Everyone's trying to say that they're green, and we're not sure who's real and who's full of it.
Yeah. Who's legit, or who's the next one we're going to read about getting a greenwashing lawsuit, right?
Exactly. And I think, hey, this is the part that's encouraging. The SEC is going to crack down on that. They're starting with scope 1 and scope 2, but we know what's next, scope 3. And
well, because we had that conversation. Scope 3 is just as important as 1 and 2. It doesn't mean it's third in importance.
It's a little bit more. And so, hey, our friend Bart DeMunk at P44, everyone's got to go check him out because he's leading the charge on this stuff, right?
Oh, man.
He's helping to tell the story. Yeah, I mean, you and I are both learning from him, and it's great.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think whenever he spoke on that panel, we were both like, can I write this down? Would it look odd if I were up here writing it?
Right. But yeah, so to your point, this is what matters. And right now it's the Wild West because we don't have a lot of confirmation around the data and around the impact.
Yeah.
But that's changing. And so I think as that changes, the marketing is going to be more sincere and clear, right? And that's what we need. We need it not just, in our B2C life as consumers, but we need it in our B2B life. When we're choosing what partners to use, I'm telling you, I am seeing it with every large shipper I work with. What's your sustainability plan?
And you
What
have to
is it?
prove it, right? You've got to prove
Yeah,
certificates. You've got to prove grades now, don't you?
you do. I mean, it depends. There's still some ambiguity in the marketplace as far as how different organizations measure it, what they
Right.
expect, and what they want.
Right.
But you've heard most companies have a carbon neutral goal at some point in time in the future, and if they don't, they'll probably tell you that they will soon, right? So,
It's a
or at least
dangerous road. It's a dangerous road to go down without action, bro.
and that's why the SEC is coming in, because if somebody says, "Hey, we want to cut it by 50 to 100%," those are typically the ranges you see, and they're typically going to give you a time horizon that sounds like 2035 to 2050,
Yeah.
right? It's an empty promise from a C-suite. Maybe they're hoping for a bump in their market cap. Maybe they're hoping for the goodwill from buyers and
Sure.
employees, whatever it is. But
Sure.
that's the slippery slope, because if it's all talk and no action, that's not going to work. It's not going to
No,
work.
that's like, isn't that like, that's Milton. I mean, that's Trevor. I mean, I mean, because, you read stories, there's I think it was Financial Times or Forbes or one of the two talking about, or sustainability and supply chain, talking about many businesses are creating war chests of money to prevent or to be able to defend against greenwashing in the future, right? As they go through these,
Interesting. Yeah, because
because
now you've got this legal liability. that
you've
is
got these legal
created.
liabilities. Yes.
Yeah.
Because like Maersk right now is in danger of it, right? Not that they should be in danger, and I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong, but Maersk is involved with, using methane or
Mhm.
methanol as a fuel for their ships, right? And they're involved with these different port initiatives in Amsterdam and different things like that, and in Denmark, etc. And it's going to take years to develop this out, right? But
Right.
as it becomes more and more known, it becomes more and more, well, we're using Maersk because they're green, or we think they're going to be green. And now they're going to have to prove those steps that they're getting there eventually, right? And so you got to have that money to be able to do that. It's almost like, I don't know if you remember the Malcolm Baldrige Award, that President's Quality Award. It gave birth to Total Quality Management and ISO and all that other kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And companies started spending so much money proving that they were quality that 60% of the winners of the Malcolm Baldrige Award went out of business within the first 2 years of winning the award.
Really?
Yeah, because they were spending all their time proving they were quality instead of getting it done.
Yeah. And see, that's one of the balances right now where I think that there's, you imagine you're building up maybe a war chest for defense against litigation. Are you building up
Yeah.
a war chest for innovation? Are you building up the war chest of, and I don't want to say marketing with greenwashing, but marketing in the brand story and proposition to the marketplace.
You've got to market or you're dead, right? So,
Yeah.
and right now, like you said, the Wild West, it is like the Wild West, because what you're talking about, there's no central agency of green certification or sustainable certification. There's no rule.
Yeah.
You go and somebody will certify you because they have enough money and they're doing enough data that they're going to be willing to stand up in court and say, yes, I told Lars he was green and told him he could advertise that. I mean, that's all it is, right?
I think there's going to be a regulatory push between now and the next 5 years that
Yeah.
help to create the right sort of state of play for us
Yeah.
to all sing off the same sheet of music, right? And we need that. Not just transportation, but I think, again, one of the highlights from our panel out at TI was this. The vast majority of your emissions come downstream in your value stream or your supply, or your supply chain. The vast majority. They're not the emissions you control. They're the emissions of everything else that happens in your business's, operations. Think
Yes.
scope 2, think scope 3, the purchasing of energy, fuel, and then the vendors who help to get the job done. That's where the vast majority of your emissions lie. And so as we think about reporting out, that's why it's going to encompass this holistic approach for everything that happens in the business. You can't just be so myopic to say, hey, this is what we produce. And it's like, okay, and great. And then everything else, is the other 90%.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: as you guys have developed this, right, and the one tree for every load and that type of stuff,
Yeah.
is it one of those gamification things that is occurring with your clients and your customers? Because I remember I managed I did a lot. My first 12 years were with Roadway Express, right?
Yeah.
Heavily strong, and I mean we're talking 80s and stuff. Union was much stronger than it was right now. Okay, I mean I had my first terminal manager was Ivan Hoffman, and he literally walked down the dock, the break bulk dock on Hagman Road in Toledo, Ohio, with his two ATMs, assistant, and they were armed. Okay, that
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah, it was a totally different situation back in the day, and you were not allowed to talk to the union, your dock workers, about productivity. But when I became terminal manager and had 5 terminals, I still insisted that we posted productivity numbers and all that kind of stuff up and just didn't talk about it. They were just there. They were
Hmm.
just,
Yeah.
and invariably the competition started
Sure.
and they were all into it. I never had to say a word. They covered it and did it themselves and used it. Has that occurred with your trees where they're like,
It's
"Hey,
interesting.
Lars, how many trees did I plant this month?" I mean, how important is
You
it
know,
to
hey,
them?
there's a part of it, right, where I don't think it's the reason why we win specific freight awards.
Uh-huh.
But here's the way I'll frame it. Imagine you're a procurement decision maker at a
Yeah,
Fortune 100 shipper.
yeah,
You're going to, you're going to feel a competitive sort of pricing event with how many different partners?
yeah,
50,
yeah,
100.
yeah,
Talked to
yeah,
somebody this morning, 350. Oh my gosh, right?
yeah.
Now, as you're making freight elections, you're probably going to have a grouping of providers who might all have a clear value proposition and would do a great job supporting the business.
Right.
That's the truth of it. So now, how do I win that coin flip moment? Coins in the air. How do I make it come up heads? And it's not just me against somebody else, it's probably me against a field of 10 folks, right? I come up heads more and more because I'm doing this and nobody else is. That's the bet we're making. And hey, here's what's fun. Like, take the marketing a step further when we're talking to somebody. If you want to get them excited and let them go and be a champion and a hero within their own organization, talk to somebody and tell them this, like, hey, if we were to agree to call it 100 loads a week on a pretty big opportunity, right? Well, now all of a sudden together, we're going to go plant 5,000 trees over the next year. And hey, let's dream a little bit. How many acres of wildlife is that going to go and recover? Right? I can give you a pretty good answer. How much carbon are those trees going to sequester over their lifetime? No, sure, it's a moment in time, but let's think about the lifetime of those trees. That number is pretty big. It's pretty compelling, right? Now all of a sudden, they're making this decision with you to say, yeah, I'm going to say yes to you because sure, you're competitive. You have to be. Those are the table stakes. But now you're doing these other things for me. That's where this program's a huge winner.
Yeah, that I get it. It's that it is. I mean, I was going to say to use a double-headed quarter, but that's cheating. That's and
I had one of those when I was a kid.
no, of course,
Yeah.
of course, it's amazing how many times I got to bat first. Um, yeah. Uh, but I love that, and that's what it is. It's that slight edge, right? I mean, and it's putting meaning towards the marketing uh, that we've seen grow up, right? We all know those different logistics providers, and we know those different commercials that we see on TV where we're trying to watch the Phoenix Suns. God bless the Suns.
Oof. I was hoping no one was going to bring that up.
I'm sorry, dude, because I had to because I'm probably slightly less disappointed than you are
All
because
right, so
man,
we're talking May 12th. Someone's going to be listening to this later on. The Suns had one of the worst ever blowouts in an elimination game. But remember, last season that was also true. Just brutal. Denver
but I
Nuggets
mean,
are a better
there
team,
was
but come
no
on,
indication that was going to happen throughout the series.
no, no,
It was so competitive. My wife was like, "I'm watching basketball," and she look up and she go, "Oh, it's Celtics. Tell me when the Suns are playing." Okay, got me, because they were really, really good games. I mean, you had some really
yeah.
probably the two teams in those games had the best players on at the same time, right? I've saw, man, games. The two wins that this, I mean, I don't. Anyway, we were getting way off topic, but it was mind blowing to me to see that happen.
And here's the thing: one of the reasons I think sports and business have become so lockstep and synonymous with the way that we tell analogies is because we love the stories that sports brings out, the competition, the underdog stories, perseverance. I mean, all of it. It's incredible. It's fascinating to watch. How do teams play together? What's the chemistry like? What's the coaching like? What's your opponent like? We watch these stories.
Yeah.
And here's one of the worst things to say as a Suns fan. They were just outplayed, totally outplayed. They went in and they brought in a superstar. They've got all the talent in the world. They couldn't get it done.
No, they couldn't get it done. Yeah. I mean, it just that's all it came down to is they just couldn't. I mean, that's true with anybody who loses. I mean, but I agree with you though. I mean, our industry attracts people of that mindset because it's not just while you're at work that you're playing this game. Your entire career is one long championship game. It's changing constantly. And,
one of my favorite stories this year. Did you? I'm sure you did. When the Bucks had their surprising first round upset against the great seeded Heat. So Giannis goes to the stage, and I don't know if this was a canned question or if a reporter was being a little mean to him. He said, "Was this season a failure?" Right? A failure is an emotional word. It evokes strong feelings, right? And he says, "No, it's not a failure. It's not a failure. Here's what I learned. Here's how I compete. Here's how I play." Think about your career, right?
Yeah.
Especially in sales, especially if we go and we try to bring to life some of these green initiatives. There's moments where things can feel like a failure because you don't win. Right. But I think so long as you're on the path and you're doing the right work, you take the ups with the downs. Right. And I don't know. I was, did you see it? Did you see his speech?
Oh,
yeah. Incredible. Right. Incredible. And I mean, hey, he's a guy who's wise beyond his years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt about it. But my point, and we got way out, which is fine. That's fine. That is because we're, nobody's holding our feet to the fire yet. But it was the marketing thing, right? I mean, you see, there's those commercials where you remember them just because you remember them because they're stupid, right? Like no mas pantalones and all that kind of thing. It feels like a sauna in here, and I mean, there's these advertisements that have nothing to do with the product, right? But you remember it, okay? And what you've done is taken something that actually matters to people and sustainability and hooked it to your brand so that when people see Freightvana, they think, okay, they're going to plant me a tree. And that's the edge that you have created there. And if you can create that in a mindful way, in an ethical way, in a sustainably minded way, in a positive impact through environment, social, or governance way, now we've got a society or an industry, if everybody's on that board, that is really making positive strides.
I've had, so let's talk about this. We've had a little bit of criticism, very, very little bit, but some folks would say, well, hey, this is
anti-tree or what?
Yeah, so it's more of like hey, this is just marketing. Do you really care about it? Is this actually important, right? And well, hey, bring it on. Because here's what I tell you: this isn't everything I want to do. This isn't everything a shipper would ask me to do. It's a start. Let's have the conversation. Let's think about creating a more positive sort of environment with every time we can do a transaction.
Amen.
The story I like to tell is this. We sometimes think about where we would like to be from a CO2 standpoint or from a sustainability standpoint, and it looks like an unclimbable mountain.
Yeah.
Right? Well, how do you start? One step at a time. So if you think of it like this, start counting the trucks when you're on the freeway. A lot of us in our industry do. We notice the brands, we notice the carriers, we notice if they're safe, slow, whatever it might be, right? And too fast. Now start to reposition the thought process as this. What if every single one of those trucks was associated with a tree being planted? Could you imagine? Could you imagine if the entire industry rallied around this? the impact would be unreal. And then just imagine the goodwill from a country perspective where we say, hey, not only are truckers the backbone of everything that we do, but they're also helping to, do their part, make things a little bit more sustainable.
Yeah.
I think there's so much that is available to a broker who goes about a path like this. And that's why we haven't talked about it here yet, but we've talked about it before. We've opened up this program. We've invited competitors to join right alongside us.
Of course. Yeah.
It's because on the one hand, it's like, hey, what if we get knocked off? I hope I do. In fact, I'll make it easy for you. You want the marketing, templates, emails, PowerPoints? You want me to create an introduction with our nonprofit who does the work? No problem at all. We're going to invite you to come in. And then, hey, we get to be the leader in it. We get to be the champion. So I can still find an advantage there while really doing what's moving the industry forward.
Yeah. Yeah. You're still the ones that started it. There's half of me that says, who cares what the motivation is as long as it's doing it right? But
yeah,
yes, you're looking for marketing, right? So if you can do it in a sustainable way, then that's the way to do it. I don't understand the criticism. Well, it's just marketing. Well, yeah, it started out as just marketing, but it was also how do we take advantage of the fact that we give a shit, right?
Right. Yeah. But go back to this idea of like, hey, we have some audacious goals when you look at what we want to do from a CO2 standpoint. But here's the thing: when the alternative is doing nothing, well, that doesn't work.
It's not good enough. Yeah, that doesn't work. You can't do that.
Exactly. And hey, look, let's be honest. We're in a very carbon intensive industry. Transportation is a carbon intensive industry, and so you see a lot of innovation coming into the marketplace to help address this. Shippers are going to demand it if they aren't already.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
If somebody's coming to you and saying, hey, it's just a marketing gig, they're just pissed because they didn't figure it out first and they don't want to be a me too. And here's the thing. Be a me too.
Yeah,
that's important.
Join us. That's okay.
Jump on board.
It's funny because the innovations of a couple of years ago, those become the expectations over time, right? And so there's always going to be the innovators and the first movers who do something great. And if you're the type of organization that can move quick, you'll be ahead of it, when everyone else catches up anyway. So that's okay.
Yeah. So let's jump into this. Here's our first topic. We're only 32 minutes into it.
This is the good part about talking to people you like, right?
Yeah, that's right. No, what I want to talk about is because this leads into it perfectly. You found out what to do, right? And so let's talk about that kind of that motivation. What role should an intermediary be playing right now? I mean, given the challenges that we have, right? I don't want to argue with anybody about global warming or any of that crap. Let's just talk about the fact that we know for a fact we're polluting the hell out of our environment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, regardless of whether you want to say we're going to be warm tomorrow.
What the outcomes might be, all of that is a different topic.
Right.
Let's
what should you be doing?
That's a common ground that makes sense. So what should the role be? I'd maybe start with saying this. By and large, most brokers don't play a role today. And I would argue that should change. So I think there's two categories. One is, how can you, through your regular business operations, create more positive impacts? This could be things like, we've talked a lot about tree planting. It makes a lot of sense. I've also talked a little bit about how our trailers, I would argue, can help to reduce idle time, which creates an impact. But there's other kinds of things you can do from an operation standpoint. Are you working with your shippers to create more efficient routes, more efficient schedules, appointments? Like there are other things that we can do. And so I think brokers need to become an advocate in the marketplace for shippers and for carriers in efficiency. That's for sure. Now here'd be the next pivot I think that brokers will become responsible for. And that's going to be aggregating data around real impact. Shippers trust brokers to access the long tail of capacity that they can't go and onboard easily. Most of the trucks over the road are small trucking fleets, right? So your shippers can't go access that. And you as the broker, that's your bread and butter. That's what you deliver every day. You deliver capacity. But I think the next step of that will be delivering more data around the drivers you used, what their days look like, what their routes look like, and the inbound. Because if we can measure what's actually happening, I think we're going to get to a place where we can start focusing on the improvements. Kind of like the story you told about the terminals. Okay, well, I can't talk about your productivity. So what am I going to do? Well, you start measuring it. You start measuring it.
I can paint it all over the walls. I just can't point to it.
So here's the thing. If we just start with a baseline where I'm tracking it.
Yeah.
We can't improve what we don't track. We know that. Every business knows that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's two things. It's one, how in your normal business operations can you find efficiencies? How in your normal business operations can you make positive impacts, i.e. tree planting? There's a couple of other things that I think are really cool out there. And then the next pivot is going to be, how can you collect and bring data that starts to drive actionable change? And part of that is going to be a positive, feedback loop into the efficiencies.
Well, are these shoulds or are these can?
Yes.
It's a big yeah,
yes.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes. I agree with you. So that's a stumping question, and it should be, because we should give pause to those questions, because that's when we're really going to make some impact. Are we seeing the beginning of the end of just the money grab broker? The guy's just out there, the guy and girls out there in their underwear and their basement.
So great markets are cyclical, right? And right now, we all operate with recency bias. We're looking at a marketplace that's really tough. So margin, net income is down for most participants in the industry. Bankruptcies are up for the small trucker.
Yeah.
But would you have asked that question a year and a half ago to anybody? Because the money grab broker was out there and they were thriving. So what happened? Because the supply and demand of it are always sort of in flux.
Well, okay, I get you. So there's a cycle. There's an economic cycle there that makes.
I wonder, right? Like, are we moving forward, or are we navigating the current marketplace? Because here's my worry. I feel like there's been a lot of consolidation in the brokerage market. And if there's enough buying power, the participants are going to always seek to maximize their outcomes, right? There's a couple of brokers who even report on the amount of committed versus spot business that they operate.
Sure.
And what do? They arbitrage the opportunity in the marketplace whenever it's advantageous to them. So everyone's talking commitments today. And yesterday they were talking about flexibility and agility in the marketplace. Well,
which is not honoring your commitments. Basically, it's just fancy speak for. No, I remember Shelley Simpson standing up and giving a keynote speech at one of the FreightWaves events, like a couple is straight into starting into COVID, or into where she was talking about how their confidence level had dropped like 15 or 20 points.
Yeah.
In their commitments because of what was going on in the market, because of
because they were adjusting to that marketplace and what opportunities it had to offer to them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, but let's unpack the question a little bit more, because I think for shippers, there's more data and there's more awareness than there has been around how these folks actually operate the business. I'd even argue this. Let's take it a step further. It's not just the non-asset providers. What about the asset players?
Yeah.
What OR are these folks running? I mean, I'm telling you, we've seen significant improvement in the operations of a lot of folks over the last 10 years because of some of the pricing power, some of the efficiencies that are happening, and they're not giving it back up. They're operating in the market just as much as anybody else is. They're not thinking about it as far as a utilization-based pricing model. They're thinking about utilization-based profitability models, i.e. they still go to the market with market-based pricing. Right. And so in their own way, I think there's a challenge where everyone wants to make a fair and healthy profit. But unless you can get behind that curtain a little bit, truth is, you're not really building these firm partnerships. And that's the challenge for shippers, because I think they're trying to balance the need for consistency and the need for partnerships with also the incredible amount of sort of churn in their networks, in their own businesses, and in their provider base.
Yeah. So now you've got all these things here that the smaller can't. The money grab guy can't do these things, and that's why we see them start to fall out when we have more difficult economic times, right? But now we're adding in this other low pressure system that's coming in from this other side here, which is the sustainability fact and scope 3 emissions and so on and so forth. And these smaller guys can't provide that type of information, right? So what I'm saying is between should and
That's where
can,
you're going. Yeah.
the can you can get to is becoming the should, because you should be doing this for your stakeholders in your company and the longevity of your company, right? It's almost is the should becoming, or the can becoming the should becoming you have to, otherwise
Yes, you're spot
you're
on,
not going to
right?
survive.
Right. This
Right?
is where our industry is moving. Now,
Yeah.
how fast? What does that look like? We don't know.
Right.
But just like we talked about how it's sort of a wild west with the metrics reporting and expectations on
Sure.
the customer or the buyer side, right? We know that as that gets defined, there's going to be a couple of things that are true. One, the expectations become the shoulds become the have tos, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But here's the other piece of it: the folks who are innovating around here will have a seat at the table for defining what those expectations are.
And that's a brilliant point. I've had many conversations with people about, okay, the U.S. is behind in regulations and EPR regulations. Europe is already, they're moving quickly through incentives, which is basically carbon tax, right? It's an incentive. It's not tax, it's incentive. It makes it legal if it's an incentive. It's illegal if it's a new tax, right? So it's an incentive. And U.S. firms wanting to do business in the EU are going to have to pay carbon taxes, right? But we don't have one in the United States yet,
Nope.
right? And we don't have a firm ERP type of or EPR. I'm sorry, not ERP, EPR, Extended Producers Responsibility legislation in the United States yet. There's some in some of the states. So we can get ahead of that, right? The leaders can, like you said, define the expectations, which can also then define what those mandates and what those laws and what those regulations are going to be. If you're sitting back, don't complain when the law comes out and it's not in your favor.
It's going to be a lot of fun when we're talking about this in 5 years to see what's changed, because regulation will be a huge part of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
But along the way, I mean, there's going to be lobbying efforts by those who are ahead of the curve in shaping that. And so, we don't know what that looks like. We just know it's coming.
Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah. And the lobbying is going on right now. If you're not active in trying to shape the future, then it's already being shaped for you.
Yeah,
it certainly is. So when you get into this, do you become? I mean, when you talk about the different things that can be done or should be done in your mind, right? Because a lot of the things that you said should be done, and kind of the vein of those shoulds become sustainably based. Like, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, because as a business, we should be. We don't have to be, but you should be, and you can be conscious how your business and your business model impacts society and the environment and everybody as a whole, right? And that's when you're talking about it, is ethically or morally, or you should be doing it this way, right? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah.
Let's make it really simple. Let's make it binary, and let's just say there's two options. These are the only two options you and I get to pick from. One is more sustainable, and one is less sustainable.
Yeah.
Which do we pick?
Yeah.
The answer is more sustainable. So we all agree.
Yeah.
Now, so we're that's not even the conversation anymore. What we're really talking about is the how. That's the entire conversation right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's really not should we or can we.
We're done with that. How. Yeah, look, that's settled, and it's not just the regulatory environment, which we've talked about a little bit. Because all right, if we have to, then we're going to. But let's talk about it like this: customers are demanding it. It's customers who are right now leading this charge.
Yeah, no, they really are, and a lot
of that. I never returned an RFP that had anything to do about sustainability. Now, most of the large RFPs I do have sections dedicated to it.
Yeah, no. The last time I did an RFP, there was no such thing as an ESG. I haven't done one.
Right. Yeah, that just was not the case. But
I haven't responded to or sent out an ESG since 2016. So Yeah, no, there was no, there wasn't anything. Well, that stuff was happening. How many trucks you got, and can you move it, and what's the price?
And hey, that section's still on there, right? And
Oh
now,
yeah, oh yeah, that
yeah,
is the
right, of
base.
course.
Yes,
But now
yeah.
there's a section. So what are you going to do here? And if you're innovating, right, there's value there. There just is.
And a lot of those things that are there are me too, me too, me too, me too. I plant
Yeah.
trees. What? Wait, huh? You do what? I mean, that's
Yeah.
right.
Well, you even think of like a smart way, for example.
Hmm.
There's not a whole lot there. Yet most brokers don't participate. I think at the last check I had, 96% are not smart way endorsed. Okay. And then what are you doing outside of that? Well, you're probably not running assets, creating efficiencies. You're probably not optimizing or using any sort of complex algorithms to think about scheduling appointments, routes.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that's a miss. And heck, go plant a tree. Let's do something, right? So I think, there's all these pieces where, to go back to one of the core questions, what can a broker do? We just ran through a lot of great options.
A lot of great options, and there's so many more that are out there. If you just look, as you're going through your thing here, and I don't you can just say no comment if it's deep into it, but I don't think it is, because I know you guys are an open book and you really do actually give a crap. But if it's a no comment, it might be because there are things that need to be done before it can become an open book type of thing. Does what you're doing eventually become a commodity like a carbon footprint, like a carbon credit? Can the customers that start using you start saying, okay, I mean, your mom and pops or whatever, they ship 2-3 loads a month. That's probably not going to be too big. But, you got your larger enterprise type customers. Can they not utilize what you're doing as a carbon credit, or is that solely stay in what
I
you
get
guys?
scared when a guy like you says, "I'm going to ask you a question that you might want to say no comment to." This one's fine. This one's totally in bounds. So let's talk about that a little bit. I'm very clear with our customers that this is not a carbon offset. Now, the carbon offset market is really intriguing for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
This would be a whole nother conversation to really dive into, understand the complexities, but more importantly, the markets in which they trade. That's really where a lot of this activity is happening, especially in Europe,
Sure.
where companies that have a net positive impact are really buying and selling some of their impacts to companies that make a net negative impact, right?
Yeah.
Super, super fascinating and interesting stuff. Planting trees, I think, will at some point in time carry some reportable value that companies can report on. Today, that's not true.
Okay.
But I think there will be some level of methodology that comes into that arena that creates a defined benefit that creates value for large companies.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great question. There's some gray area there, but as you think about a lot of our goals, I mean, look, like we're not going to plant our way to all the carbon goals that different governments have aligned themselves to. Like, no way. But is that a part of the story? Sure, it is.
Absolutely is. It absolutely is. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's very similar to the industry that I am now part in, plastics, right? In recycling specifically, because the company is Ocean Plastic Technologies, right? But I don't take any plastics out of the ocean. Okay,
you're upstream and making sure that they don't go into the ocean.
Exactly, and so the similarities are this: the trees are removing the carbon, right? Which has to happen. There are companies out there removing the plastics from the ocean and from the waterways and the rivers, et cetera. That has to happen. But somebody's got to stop putting it there.
Yeah.
Right. As well.
I heard this analogy. If you went into your bathroom and you noticed that your tub was overfilling, right? And there's a plug at the bottom, right, that you could take out, but there's also the faucet and it's on full blast. What do you do first, right? We probably want to turn off the spigot, right? So hey, sure, we gotta unplug it. We gotta go get that crap out of the ocean. Sure.
Wait, I got to write that down for the next time because I keep messing that up.
But it's like, yeah, go turn off the spigot. Stop
See,
throwing
what
that.
I do is I run into the garage looking for a bucket to start bailing it into the
Yeah.
sink.
It's like, wait a minute, I'm messing this up. I'm not doing this order of operations.
This is wrong. I got a good thing I got you on speed dial because it's going to happen again.
Anytime, brother.
It happens to me every week. I'm going to call you now. What was that sequence I got to do again?
You know, when you hear a good one, you go and write it down. It's the idea is worth stealing, right? Like, go steal that one. It's a good one.
It's a really good. So you put the ham between the slices of bread. I've got it. Got it down. I've got it down, man. So are you guys, so do people have dashboards? Do they know how many trees they're planting with you guys?
You know, it's not a dashboard type function today. Right now, it's a lot of one-to-one communication with shippers.
Gotcha.
When you want to tell a brand story, right? Like, I think that's the way to do it, where you deliver it to them. You make it personal. You make it real.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll give you an example. For some of our biggest shippers, you know, we packaged up some pretty cool and personalized videos.
Yeah.
We overviewed the program, the impact, some of the outcomes that'll happen. We even would overlay sort of the amount of area reforested over their corporate campuses. Yeah. Because I want to make it real. If I say an acre, if I say 10 acres, right, that's sort of hard to, you know, feel impacted by. But if you say
hectares, it makes you sound smarter.
And hey, I hate to say it. Do you feel good about the metric system? Oh gosh, right? Yeah.
Kilograms, I understand. Liters, I understand.
Okay. Kilograms, I understand. Sure, right?
And
you start talking about some of these metric tons. What's that?
It's spelled differently. There's 2 N's and an E.
See, you've already lost me. What are you doing? So hey, like, and here's the great thing. When you talk about numbers, we can absolutely bury each other in data.
Sure.
And we've got to be able to report, okay, but we've also got to be able to relate. That's a different power. Because if I can make you understand a concept in a way that feels tangible and feels real, I've changed the way that I'm selling a complex and abstract thing. That matters.
Yeah. So I'm okay. Now I'm really curious about the trees because what you bring up just reminds me because okay. The MIT school, and I'll find a report and I'll send it to you. Maybe you've read it, but the study is incredibly cool. And they did different things. One of the things was in there was about what I was telling you about was the 74% of the people will spend more money for a sustain, which is absolutely true.
Right.
But they did studies of people looking at things on shelves and stuff. They also did route optimization for it's more like LTL type of stuff, right? It could be used in long haul, but it's harder to exact route a long haul than it is your LTL network and your delivery network, right? If you're operating,
LTL has more complexities in a shorter length of haul, so optimization is a different.
But it's also more consistent. You're always delivering every day. These group of managers are always trying to figure out how to more sustainably or how more efficiently to deliver around Phoenix or Tempe or Mesa, right? So what they did was they actually figured out that the sequence of weight in the trailer and as compared to the sequence of deliveries and not the route as far as its elevation change, but the intensity or the slope of the routes taken to do that were far more impactful than distance, far more impactful than distance as far as CO2, right? But what in that same thing, what they also found in the same, because it reaches across a whole bunch of things. That was a really interesting point that I wanted you to understand because I knew your geek.
You got to send this to me. I'm glad you thought I might have read it, but you've got to enlighten me and send that over.
I will. Because
cool.
Inside it as well, what they do is they talk about the things, and one of the things was people responded like. I forget what the number was or the exact measurement, but the positive response from people on sustainability and CO2 reduction was far, far more positive when it was explained to them in number of trees than anything else.
Sure. Yep.
Even the one that hit me was a gigaton. A gigaton is 10,000 fully loaded aircraft carriers. That's a gigaton.
Oof. Yeah.
And we're pumping 58 gigatons into the air in transportation a year.
Yeah. So
that's a lot of aircraft carriers.
Yeah. We've got to make these numbers relatable. We've got to make it where, we we understand and feel the impact. And then we've
Yeah.
got to help to tell a better story, right, through relating these things.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I think sometimes it's hard to appreciate the scope of what we're dealing with. And gosh,
Yeah.
I love the story you were just mentioning about how using this complex data set to understand the impact, and it might not be the variables that you think are important, right?
Exactly.
You know, I think machine learning and AI is going to totally change a lot of how we think about moving things and really make our industry a lot more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about a city like, say, Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
if you're familiar with Pittsburgh on
I
any
am.
level,
I am. You
okay.
make a wrong turn and you're dealing with it.
Oh, you're screwed. You could be 2 minutes away, make a wrong turn, and now you're 2 hours late.
I'd always lose my GPS connection coming from the airport going into downtown. We've all done it.
No more. You'd be hard pressed to find a better view than coming out of that tunnel on a clear night with a full moon.
Oh, it's super cool. Yeah, Pittsburgh's a great town.
There's the Three Rivers is right there in front of you. The town is, and you come out at probably, I don't know what, probably 60 stories high across into the city. It's beautiful.
The view you get is wild.
Yeah, and then you got to go to South Side and have some drinks and then head over to Permane Brothers, right? And get a
Hey, there you go. Yep.
And if you're lucky enough, all the churches are doing their pierogi drives. I know Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh very well. But dude, this has been incredible, man. An hour flew.
I know. We're just having fun. That's the truth of it.
We'll do this again. We'll talk about some more stuff, man. I'll throw you some stuff, and we'll just come in and talk about some other things, because there's so much out there, brother. There's so much information. There's so
much out there, and this topic, the importance of it is going to grow, right? So I think that's one of the things that's exciting. We know that this is important, but the technology, the innovation, the marketing opportunities, the brand opportunities, there's so many different pieces to unpack there. And the companies that are going to win through the rest of this decade are going to be on the leading edge of sustainable efforts.
Amen. I'm with you. The people stand out there saying, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to do this until I absolutely have to, because it is a draw on my capital." They're absolutely,
drag your feet and get left behind.
Yeah, you're absolutely wrong. You need to be innovative and figure out how can you provide that sustainable value add to your customers and set yourself apart. Even if it's joining Lars and Shannon and everybody over there at and John and everybody else at Freightway or at Freightways at Freightvana. Come on, FV. I'm sorry, that's why it is. I tried to go FV. I'm not one of the cool kids yet, bro.
Oh,
I do have my.
You are.
Where's my?
The invite's in the mail.
I'm part of the lunch crowd. Anyways,
no, it's
you've got to innovate.
I appreciate the good words and the compliment, right? You know, it's
man.
This is one piece of the puzzle.
Plant a shrubbery for every load that somebody, right?
No, plant a tree with me. That's better. But look, here's
told Lars he should plant I told not Lars. I told Bart that he should plant a tulip, and he said that's not the same country. They're north of where I'm from.
Oh gosh, you're offending our Belgian friend with his Netherlands neighbors. This is it's a cardinal sin. It's okay. You can probably make up for it with a good Belgian.
How do you offend somebody from Belgium? Is confuse them with being Dutch? Apparently, that pisses them off.
Oh, that's funny. But hey, this is the best part about it. The industry wants to support each other and getting better, and I think that's one of the more unique trends that's emerged. I think the siloing off is sort of breaking down, and the collaboration is really coming into focus. Might be with competitors, like what we're telling folks to do and join us with tree planting, but it's all the vendor partners that are up and downstream of how freight gets moved. P44 being a great example of that. Folks want to come together to report on and improve the efficiencies in our marketplace. When you do that, we're more sustainable. And when you do that, you're probably delivering an ROI that just makes too much sense to ignore. Yeah. That's the opportunity ahead of us, man.
Hey, and we're going to end it on that one. because
Cool.
that was absolutely awesome. That was perfect. Lars, my friend, always awesome. I'll talk to you again soon. I got to catch up with you next week and talk to
Yeah,
you
we
about
can just catch up at any time, brother. I
yeah,
appreciate the
absolutely.
opportunity and everything that you're doing.
And hey, man, Phoenix Suns is always next year, bro.
All right. All right.
Right on, brothers. Hey, everybody, peace and love. Hey.